"My father played this every night," the 17-year-old girl said, her voice breaking. "He said it was the most beautiful piano in the world." The shop owner didn't care. He'd heard 1,000 sad stories. They all wanted money. They all thought their instruments were special. "I can give you $80, he said. "Final offer." The girl looked at the piano. Her father had died 6 months ago. This piano was the last thing that still smelled like him. The last thing that proved he'd been real. The last place where his hands had touched something that still existed. "My mother needs medicine," she whispered. "The hospital said we have to pay by Friday or they'll stop her treatment." She couldn't finish the sentence, just stood there staring at the keys her father had played 10,000 times. The shop owner started writing a receipt. $80 for a piano worth $4,500. That's when a man who'd been quietly browsing walked over. He didn't introduce himself, just sat down at the piano bench and started playing. Hartman's Music Shop, downtown Los Angeles, Tuesday afternoon, October 3, 1965. Sarah Morrison stood in front of the counter trying not to cry. She was 17 years old, a senior at Roosevelt High School. She should have been in chemistry class. Instead, she was here selling her father's piano to a man who was lying to her face. She knew he was lying. Sarah wasn't 8 years old. She'd played piano since she was 5. Her father had taught her. Every night, he'd come home from his job at the post office, eat dinner with Sarah and her mother, and then play this piano for an hour. Chopin, Beethoven, Gershwin, sometimes jazz standards, he'd learned when he was young. "A piano is the closest thing to a human voice," he used to say. "You can make it laugh, make it cry, make it tell the truth." James Morrison had died 6 months ago. Lung cancer, 53 years old. Didn't smoke, didn't drink much, just got unlucky. Now Sarah's mother, Catherine, was in the hospital. Stage 3 breast cancer. The surgery had gone well, but the follow-up treatment was expensive. Even with insurance, they owed $3,000. The hospital had sent 3 letters. The last one said, "Payment required by October 8 or treatment will be discontinued." 5 days. Sarah had tried everything. She'd gotten a job at a diner, working nights after school. She'd sold her father's books, his records, his watch. She'd even sold her own records, the Beatles albums, the Beach Boys, everything. It wasn't enough. The piano was the last thing of value they owned. A 1952 Steinway upright. Her father had bought it used in 1958 for $900, saved up for 2 years to afford it. He'd maintained it carefully, tuned it twice a year, kept it away from windows, treated the wood. Sarah knew pianos. She knew this one was worth at least $3,000, maybe more. So when Harold Hartman, the shop owner, looked at it and said, "I can give you $80, Sarah knew he was cheating her. $80? She repeated. "That's generous," Hartman said. "This piano is old. It's scratched up. The market for used pianos isn't great right now." All lies. The piano was pristine. Sarah had polished it yesterday before her uncle helped her transport it here. "My father paid $900 for this in 1958, Sarah said, her voice steady, despite the tears building behind her eyes. "Well, pianos depreciate," Hartman said smoothly. "They're like cars, lose value the moment you buy them." Also a lie. Quality pianos appreciated, especially Steinways. But Sarah was 17. She had no leverage, no time, no options. She was about to say yes when someone spoke from the back of the shop. "Actually, that's not quite right." The man who'd spoken walked forward. He was in his late 40s, wearing a nice suit, but nothing flashy. He'd been in the shop for maybe 15 minutes, browsing through the sheet music section, not bothering anyone. Hartman looked annoyed. "I'm sorry. Can I help you?" "Maybe," the man said. He walked straight to the piano. "Mind if I try it?" Before Hartman could answer, the man sat down at the bench. He adjusted his position slightly, placed his fingers on the keys, and began to play. Sarah recognized the piece immediately. Clair de Lune by Debussy, one of her father's favorites. But this wasn't how her father played it. This was different, professional, the kind of playing Sarah had only heard on records. The man's fingers moved across the keys with effortless precision. The notes filled the shop, clear, rich, perfect. Every phrase was shaped beautifully. The dynamics were flawless. Hartman's face had gone pale. Sarah was staring. Whoever this man was, he was extraordinarily talented. The man played for about a minute, then stopped. He ran his hand along the wood of the piano, testing the action of the keys, listening to the sustain. "This is a beautiful instrument," he said, looking at Sarah. 1952 Steinway Model K52, if I'm not mistaken. Hand maintained. Someone took care of this piano. "My father did," Sarah whispered. The man nodded. "He did it well. The action is perfect. The tone is clear across all registers. The soundboard is solid. No cracks, no warping. This piano is worth at least $3,500, probably $4,000 if you found the right buyer." Sarah's breath caught. She'd suspected the value was high. But hearing it confirmed by someone who clearly knew what he was talking about made her realize just how badly Hartman was trying to cheat her. Hartman's face had gone from pale to red. "Now look here, I'm Dean Martin," he said, extending his hand to Sarah. "And I'd like to buy this piano." Sarah stared. Dean Martin, the Dean Martin, standing in front of her, offering to buy her father's piano. What?" she managed. "How much does your mother's treatment cost?" Dean asked quietly. "I'm sorry. You said your mother needs medicine, hospital bills, I'm guessing. How much do you need?" Sarah didn't know why she answered. Maybe because Dean Martin's voice was kind. Maybe because she was desperate. Maybe because she'd been holding this alone for too long. $3,000, she said. "By Friday." Dean pulled out a checkbook. Right there, standing next to her father's piano, he wrote a check. When he handed it to her, Sarah saw the amount. $5,000. "Mr. Martin, I can't. The $3,000 is for your mother's bills," Dean said firmly. "The other $2,000 is for your father's piano, which I'm buying right now." He turned to Hartman. "You're a witness. I just purchased this Steinway for $2,000. Write up a receipt." Hartman was sputtering. "You can't just—" "I can and I did," Dean said calmly. "Write the receipt." Hartman, sensing he'd been beaten, wrote up the sale. Dean signed it. The piano legally belonged to Dean Martin. Then Dean turned to Sarah. "Now, here's what's going to happen," he said. "I need a place to store this piano. I live in Los Angeles, but I travel constantly. Vegas, New York, film shoots. I can't have a piano sitting in an empty house." Sarah was trying to follow, but she was still in shock. "So, I'm wondering," Dean continued, "if maybe you'd be willing to store this piano for me at your house, free of charge." Sarah stared at him. "You want me to store your piano?" "That's right. And while it's there, you should probably play it. Pianos need to be played regularly or they lose their tone. Your father knew that. He kept this one in beautiful condition by playing it every night." Sarah's eyes were filling with tears. She understood what Dean was doing. "Mr. Martin, there's one more thing," Dean said. "This piano shouldn't just be stored. It should be played by someone who loves it, someone who learned to play on it, someone whose father taught them that a piano is the closest thing to a human voice." Sarah's hand went to her mouth. "How did you—" "I was standing right there," Dean said gently, pointing to the sheet music section. "I heard everything you told Mr. Hartman here about your father, about the piano, about your mother. Why are you doing this?" Sarah whispered. Dean Martin looked at this 17-year-old girl who'd been trying to solve adult problems alone, trying to save her mother while losing pieces of her father. "Because 20 years ago, I was broke in New York, working clubs that barely paid enough for rent, and I got sick. Appendicitis, emergency surgery. I didn't have insurance, didn't have money, didn't have anything." He paused, remembering. "A man I barely knew, another performer, a trumpet player, paid my hospital bill. $1,200 he didn't have. He told me, someday when you can, do the same for someone else." Dean handed Sarah the receipt for the piano. "This piano belongs to me now, but it's staying at your house forever if you want because that's what your father would want. And because someone once helped me when I needed it." "I don't know how to thank you," Sarah said, crying now. "Play it," said Dean simply. "Play it the way your father taught you. That's all the thanks I need." He started to walk toward the door, then stopped. "Oh, and Sarah, your father was right. That is the most beautiful piano in the world. Not because of what it's worth, because of who loved it." After Dean left, Harold Hartman stood behind his counter in silence. He'd owned this music shop for 18 years. He'd made a good living, not a fortune, but comfortable. He'd done it in part by buying low and selling high. That was business. That's what everyone did. But watching Dean Martin write that check, watching him give that girl $5,000 and then give her back the piano, something had shifted in Hartman's chest. He'd been about to cheat a 17-year-old girl out of $3,900 while her mother was dying, while she was trying to hold her family together alone. And he'd felt nothing until Dean Martin walked in and showed him what decency looked like. That night, Hartman went home to his wife and told her the story. "What did you do after he left?" she asked. "I stood there like an idiot," Hartman said quietly. His wife looked at him for a long moment. "You should call that girl." "And say what?" "Say you're sorry and give her back the money you were going to cheat her out of." Hartman stared at his wife. "That's $3,900. "I know. So, you'll take it out of our savings." "We'll be fine. Harold, we have enough." "That girl doesn't. Her mother is dying and you were about to steal from her." Hartman didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he looked up Sarah Morrison's address. He drove to her house, a small modest place in Echo Park, and knocked on the door. Sarah answered. Her eyes were red from crying, but she looked less desperate than she had yesterday. "Mr. Hartman, I need to give you something," Hartman said. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $3,900. "This is the difference between what I offered you and what your piano was actually worth," he said. "I was going to cheat you." Dean Martin stopped me. "But I should do more than just not cheat you. I should make it right." Sarah stared at the check. "I don't understand." "Dean Martin taught me something yesterday," Hartman said, "about what kind of man I want to be. I'm not there yet, but this is a start." Catherine Morrison recovered. The $5,000 from Dean Martin plus the $3,900 from Hartman paid for all her treatment and 3 months of follow-up care. She lived. Sarah graduated from Roosevelt High in June 1966. She'd been planning to skip college and work full-time to help her mother, but Catherine wouldn't hear of it. "Your father would want you to go," Catherine said. "We'll figure it out." Sarah went to UCLA. She studied music education. She played her father's piano every day. The piano that was technically owned by Dean Martin, but lived in their living room. She never heard from Dean again. He'd given her his gift and moved on. But in 1969, Sarah graduated from UCLA with a degree in music education. She became a piano teacher. For the next 40 years, she taught students in Los Angeles. She never charged students who couldn't afford lessons. "Pay me when you can," she'd say. "Or don't pay me at all. Just play." She told all her students the story of Dean Martin buying her father's piano and giving it back. She told them about Hartman's apology and making things right. She told them about her father playing every night. "Music isn't about money," she'd say. "It's about connection. It's about keeping the people we love alive in the notes we play." Sarah Morrison taught piano until she was 67 years old. She taught over 1,200 students. Dozens of them became professional musicians. Hundreds more simply learned to love music. When Sarah died in 2018 at age 70, her obituary mentioned that she'd been a piano teacher for 4 decades. It also mentioned that she'd played the same 1952 Steinway her entire life, the piano her father had bought in 1958, the piano Dean Martin had purchased in 1965 and given back. The piano was left to one of Sarah's students, a young woman from South Central LA who couldn't afford lessons but showed up every week anyway. "Play it the way Sarah taught you," the will read. "And when you're done, pass it on to someone else who needs it." Because that's what Dean Martin had taught Sarah, that the most valuable things in life aren't meant to be sold. They're meant to be shared.